Welcome, welcome, welcome for another discussion on dementia. As you all know, that June is described as Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and we have been having some great conversations, some very emotional. We've had caregivers talking with us, and we've also had some who were part of the medical communities, as well as being a caregiver as well, where they could speak from both perspectives. And tonight we have somebody from the medical community who can really begin to talk to us in regards to helping us understand genetics, which I think is vitally important. And then we're also going to begin to touch a little bit in regards to food and gain some knowledge in regards to our brain health. Okay. So if you know somebody who's been diagnosed with any form of dementia, that what I want you to do, they say sharing is caring, right? I want you to hit the share button. All right. And share this with somebody. I want you to invite your family members so that they can begin to get some information in regards to genetics. All right. And so I don't want this to be one of the best kept secrets in town. All right. I want us to make sure that the education component of it is getting out. And so I have this expert with us on tonight, and I'm really excited about introducing her to you all. Okay. She's already on the screen, so you see her right now. But Samantha, welcome. How are you on tonight?
I'm very good, Tynese. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to be sharing this information. It's really, really vital. So I'm really happy about the initiative you have going on here.
All right. Well, I know I've shared before, but this is just something that is very personal for me. From my mother's side and my own grandmother. She's passed some years back, but she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so as a result of that, this is personal for me, and there's an emotional connection here as well. Okay, and a lot of times in life, the reason that we walk the path, the journey that we do, is because of that personal connection. There's something that we've endured. There's some type of test that we've endured, and as a result, here we go on the other side, trying to educate people, empower people, right? And just begin to just giving wisdom along this journey. And so we're here tonight, and I'm going to stop talking because I want to find out a little bit more about who you are. I want the people to know who you are. So tell us a little bit, who is Samantha Salmon?
Well, I am a certified brain optimization coach, and I got interested in a healthy lifestyle because I watched my grandmother suffer at home with us from type 2 diabetes, and she had all the comorbidities that go along with it. So she ended up dying at home on hospice care my first year of college due to type 2 diabetes at the young age of 86. Okay. And then fast forward 3 years later, 4 years later, I find Dr. Neil Barnard's book, Dr. Neil Barnard's program for reversing type 2 diabetes, where he talks about how type 2 diabetes can be reversed in 2 weeks with a whole food vegan diet. And so that book sent me basically on a whole emotional roller coaster because my grandma had type 2 diabetes for over a decade. And I watched her be a human pincushion to the medical system to the point where, she had to do like the finger pricks every morning to test her blood sugar, but eventually that wasn't enough. And I guess her pancreas just was struggling to make insulin. So she had to get those long insulin injections into her stomach. That lasted a few months. Then her big toe turned black. And it was 2 weeks from then she was home on hospice dying. So things happen rather quickly, right? But when I found out the power of nutrition, I was like, first of all, how dare they not tell us this? Like, what's going on in the medical system? And also, I need to do something because I don't want to deal with that pain that I watched my grandma go through. We're all going to die, right? But the pain and the suffering that she experienced and the way she went out, my grandma did not want to die. She had 8 kids, 17, 19 grandchildren, all of us gathered around her in her final days. And my mom had to literally give her permission to go because she wanted to stay, and she was enduring great pain to stay. Had we had the information, she would have, carried on. Now, the one person that I don't generally talk about a lot is that alongside my grandmother, for a period of time, I had a nanny who was my grandma's best friend, and I call her Aunt Vi. My family's from Jamaica, West Indies, so they're both from Jamaica. Aunt Vi was from Kingston, though. My grandma was from St. Catherine, for those who know Jamaica, right? Okay, so Aunt Vi is the oldest person that I have ever met in my life. She was born in 1917, and she actually passed away after my grandmother. Um, so she was older than her and she lived longer. She ended up passing away. She got My grandma did not get to see me graduate NYU. Like, I remember when I got accepted, NYU was my first choice school. I got accepted early admission, and I my grandma was the first person I ran to, but unfortunately she did not get to sorry, I'm hearing a feedback, but she did not get to see me graduate, but Aunt Vi was there. She was able to see me graduate. She got to meet my husband when I got married. What ended up taking Aunt Vi out at the age of 97 was actually dementia. She was living by herself, independent, and her diet actually was very different than my grandmother's. Aunt Vi's diet was a whole food, plant-based diet, and she did eat fish, and she ate fish like 3 times a week. And I do definitely want to talk about fish today, because a lot of people think it's a health food. But that's how Aunt Vi ate, and she lasted to 97. And basically, the reason why she ended up getting the dementia, which we're going to talk about, because there are 11 risk factors for cognitive decline, right? Cognitive decline encompasses what ends up leading to all the different types of dementias, including Alzheimer's, which is the most popular one. About 60 to 80% of dementia cases end up being Alzheimer's. Frontal temporal lobe, that one's pretty popular in terms of, like, it's been on the scene recently with Bruce Willis getting diagnosed and Wendy Williams getting diagnosed. It's a really scary disease. And like you said, it's really tough for the caretakers because of the parts of the brain that's being affected. But there are other kinds, Lewy body dementia. There are like a whole bunch of different kinds, but Alzheimer's tends to be the one that most people get diagnosed with. But beyond that, even mental health issues like depression, anxiety, irritability, and aggressiveness, these things are symptomology or signs of cognitive decline, because all of this is coming from the organ of the brain, right? The brain is the organ of our behavior, of how we think and feel, and how we interact with each other, right? How we show up at home, how we show up in our communities. And so if our brain is not healthy, then we're not healthy. Our relationships aren't healthy, right? And so, just to circle back with Aunt Vi, she lived by herself, right? So she was stable and strong, and she lived by herself in Brooklyn. And one day she was making something on the stove and she forgot about it, almost burned down the apartment building. And so her family put her in a nursing home, and she was in the nursing home for quite a bit, where like it got progressively worse. Because even when we met with her in the nursing home, like she would ask me, how is my grandma? And I said, Aunt Vi, she passed away. She passed away. And then she would grieve her, like as if she just found out about it. And then 10 minutes later, she would be asking, how is grandma again? Because that was her best friend. And after a while, I picked up, okay, like I just need to play along, because it was just too painful. Like she was being emotionally hurt. I was being emotionally hurt every time, So it was tough. But I kind of wanted to talk about her because she's really relevant to this story. But it was really my grandmother that got me into health and wellness and brain health. For me to tell you why I'm so interested in brain health, I mean, it encompasses so much. Like our whole life is being managed by the health of our brain or the unhealth of our brain. So there are many reasons. I could write a whole book about why it's so important that we have this conversation today.
Oh man. Um, that was that was a great introduction, and thank you for sharing something that was personal for you, as well as let us know how you got into this space. And this is exactly what I was talking about. You know, typically we find ourselves in these spaces because of something that happened in our lives, along in our bloodline, something of that nature. And you know, it is almost like a burden that comes on us. And part of that burden, the reason for it is for us to actually begin to dive deeper. And then there's like strategies and solution, and there's wisdom that we gain, a wealth of knowledge as a result of that, to be able to help others along this journey. And
Yeah.
so I'm just going to turn it over to you. And I just want you to talk a little bit. You hit, I was like, let me go ahead and highlight this real quick. She said there was 11 risk factors to cognitive decline. I'm not sure if you plan on talking about any of them, but if you would just at least mention a few of those risk factors to cognitive decline, I would be grateful. Okay.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I'm gonna disappear and let you just go ahead and go at it. Okay.
Okay, good to know, because I was like, is she there? Yeah, so there are 11 risk factors. So basically, what we know in science right now, and I'll preface this by saying type 2 diabetes is pretty cut and dry, right, for the most part. When it comes to dementia, the best we can do is try to treat the risk factors in order to prevent the cognitive decline that leads to dementia. Because all of us, actually, starting from childhood, are slowly experiencing cognitive decline because of some of the things that I'm going to tell you shortly, right? So, right now, that's what we're seeing. Right now, we have an obesity crisis with our young people. We are seeing atherosclerosis, which is plaque in the arteries, showing up in our young people. I'm talking about 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, right? Because of the processed food and saturated fat that they're eating, all the junk food, right? And I was one of those kids. So I was like, I'm in the same boat, okay? Also, besides that, we have been seeing mental health disturbances rising with young people, teens, when it comes to suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, all of these things, right? This is all stemming from the functioning or lack thereof of the brain, okay? Depression leads to cognitive decline. Okay, so just to kind of preface that we are all like, unless you were born and raised in a very pristine environment with the most excellent diet, then, you know, and you stay that way like for the rest of your life, then maybe you're all good. But the brain is never really constant, right? So even though, as I'm saying all of this, um, with whatever decline or issue that the brain is going through right now, it's never too late to improve it. Okay. People have asked me before, can I reverse Alzheimer's? Can I reverse dementia? And there are different degrees of it, right? So when the tissue is dead, like for those people, we're talking about stage 4 dementia, then yeah, right now in science, we haven't really seen a reversal. But there are earlier stages of Alzheimer's and dementia that we have seen a reversal. Okay. So, and even for the folks who are further along in the decline, doing these things is only going to make your quality of life better, right? Even if you won't necessarily not have the disease anymore, it will make your quality of life better, which I think is worth it. Ultimately, that's what we're all looking for, is a better quality of life. So, in terms of the risk factors, so there's a mnemonic that I'll share so that you can remember it. It's called Bright Minds. Okay. So if you have something to write that down, you can write down Bright Minds, BRIGHT, Minds, MINDS. B stands for blood flow, because the brain actually gets nourishment, nutrients, and oxygen through the blood, which is a hint right there. You need a healthy cardiovascular system in order to have a healthy brain. Okay. R is for retirement and aging, which it is just to remind you, like when people retire, they tend to kind of disconnect from society and isolate in their homes, right? And not really talk to anybody. But social connection and interaction is really important for the brain so it doesn't atrophy. We want it to grow and not die, right? The brain is a muscle and it can grow, but if we don't use it, we lose it. And part of using it is actually communicating with others, hearing others. So like even for older folks, or not even just older folks, because there are people in their 40s that I know that wear hearing aids, but having a functioning hearing aid, if you have issues hearing, is super important. You need to be able to hear and respond in order for the brain not to die. Like lack of hearing atrophies the brain, right? Then there's I for inflammation. If you have inflammation in the body anywhere, you will have inflammation in the brain. G is for genetics. So this is where I wanted to kind of hone in on and just touch on a little bit. For those of you who are watching, who you're seeing maybe one parent or someone on your maternal side has had dementia, some form of dementia. Someone on your father's side, maybe your dad or someone on that side has dementia. If one parent has the APOE4 gene, right? That's a literal marker, gene marker that you can test for, the APOE4 gene. If you have one parent, you're at risk, right? I forget what the numbers are, but you're at risk probably like 4 times or something like this. If you have 2 parents, you're more at risk, right? Commonsensical. And so what does that mean? Does that mean it's inevitable that you'll get it? Not necessarily, because genes account for like 10 to 20% of the whole equation when it comes to chronic disease, this is what this is. 80% has to do with diet and lifestyle. So what that says is, number one, you can get tested for it and you can see it, because like dementia, the diagnosis of dementia, by the time you're able to see that by the time you get a diagnosis for that, this thing has been working on getting to this point. Like cognitive decline has been happening for like 50 years, right? It takes time to get to the level of a diagnosis of dementia. So you have time to actually work on healing the brain and reversing cognitive decline. And you can get tested before you would even see a diagnosis, before you would get to the point of a diagnosis of dementia, right? So it's worth getting tested, especially if you're seeing it show up in your family. Hey, do I have this gene, And there could be other reasons why it's showing up in your family. One of the things, even in the type 2 diabetes world and other chronic disease world, we don't just pass on genes to our family. We're passing on, recipes, so a lot of it has to do with diet, has to do with lifestyle. Do you come from an active family or not? Those types of things. But you can test for this, for the APOE4 gene. And if you have it, right, or if you see people in your family are dealing with dementia, you just need to make sure that living a brain healthy lifestyle is your highest priority. And luckily, a brain healthy lifestyle and diet is the same as a cardiovascular healthy lifestyle and diet, is the same as a gut healthy lifestyle and diet, because you need a healthy gut and a healthy cardiovascular system in order to have a healthy brain. Okay, so we were up to G in the bright, right? So H is for hormones. So you need to have your hormones balanced. That's your sex hormones and your thyroid hormones. So estrogen, testosterone, your thyroid hormones, you want to get those checked and make sure they're in the optimal range, because any imbalance in your hormones is going to affect the brain, basically constrict blood flow to the brain. T is for toxins. We need to beware of chemicals. A lot of us are consuming chemicals. I mentioned earlier the fish, right? The fish is really where I feel like Aunt Vi, if Aunt Vi didn't have the fish, she could have lasted so long. She would have been a centenarian. She was so close to being a centenarian if it wasn't for the fish. At the time when she passed, all we really knew about fish was that they're heavy metals, and she had it 3 times a week because that was her protein source. And I put that in quotes because there are a lot of cleaner ways to get protein, right? But, since that time, right? So first of all, 3 times a week for fish is even more than what the USDA recommends. Okay, so that should tell you a lot because they're very conservative with their recommendations. But right now, what we know is fish is the highest source of DDT consumption, which is now a banned chemical because we know it's a carcinogen. And it's the highest source of microplastic consumption. Microplastics are endocrine disruptors, which basically means that they disrupt hormonal balance. And both of these things also are obesogenic chemicals. So if you're on a weight loss journey, which is important because we're going to get to that, right? If you are in the obese range, this is a risk factor for the health of your brain. So fish is not a health food. However, omega-3 fatty acids is definitely a health food, and there are healthy sources of this. We need to be having this on a daily basis. What does that look like? So for women, that looks like 2 tablespoons of flax seeds every day. For men, 1 tablespoon of flaxseed is sufficient. Hemp seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. You can even do algae. And if you need supplementation, right? Like let's say you got tested and your omega-3 numbers are not optimal and you feel like you need something more than the food, then you can get omega-3 supplements and they come from algae. They're algae based. Because where does the fish get its omega-3? It gets it from the seaweeds of the ocean. The fish are eating vegetables, right? From from where they live, right? So that's the healthy source. So where am I up to? So that's the bright portion. For minds, M is for mental health. Like I mentioned, anxiety and depression. And depression is just a name. A lot of times, like in the medical establishment, they have names for symptom clusters. Okay. So even when I say depression should not be the end point and then you get a pharmaceutical drug. If that's the psychiatrist that you're working with, you may want to find another psychiatrist. One that's more in the functional medicine world, because a lot of these benzodiazepines and antidepressant drugs, they actually cause dementia. They constrict blood flow to the brain. Some people, certain medications are really helpful for them, and some people it's not so good, right? Which is why you really need to have a proper evaluation. Some people are diagnosed with depression and just given pharmaceutical drugs, and it causes psychosis and other mental health disturbances, which is basically the brain is getting worse and worse, getting more atrophied. So it's not necessarily the way to go. Whenever you hear depression or you're having, it just basically means chronic low mood, you have to ask the reason why. It's like you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor, I have chest pain. Chest pain is where you start the conversation. Then you go into what is causing the chest pain. There are numerous reasons why. With depression, what we've seen is just exercising is way more effective than even the antidepressant drugs, according to research, right? There's lots of research on this. So it's like, why would you add this toxic chemical drug that doesn't only constrict blood flow to the brain, but also puts a lot of pressure on the liver and kidneys that have to filter these chemicals, right? It puts a lot of stress on the body. And like I said, it's hurting the brain. When you could just exercise more, which is in alignment with what I said earlier with the B in Bright Minds, right? Blood flow. That's how you get blood flow. You need consistent exercise. So anyway, if you have a mental health issue, you do need to get it treated. If you're dealing with anxiety, if you're dealing with depression, aggressiveness, irritability, like I said, all of these are signs that your brain is not well. And depending on the timing too, there are some older folks that are 60, 70 plus getting diagnosed with depression. And it's just a sign really that they're having early stage dementia. Also, some things can mimic other things. So for example, I know of a story of this one woman, her dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, given Alzheimer's drugs. Turns out he actually didn't have Alzheimer's. What he had was depression, which needed to be treated, right? So they were treating the wrong thing. And earlier I said that hormonal balance is important. When your thyroid hormones aren't balanced, sometimes it could look like bipolar disorder. So there are folks who have been diagnosed with bipolar. They don't have bipolar. Their thyroid hormones need to be balanced, right? Which is a whole nother treatment protocol that has to do with nutrition and lifestyle and all of this stuff. So it's just something to keep in mind, and that's why you need to work with the proper team, right? Me as a health coach, I am part of a healthcare team. So I work with doctors, I work with therapists, right? Because therapists have their own modality. Me as a coach, I'm focused really on behavior change, right? So that you can actually implement everything we're talking about today. The information is great, but it doesn't really help you unless you implement it, right? And so that's where I come in if you're having struggle with the implementation. So that was M for mental health. Now the I in Bright Minds, the second I, is for infections, like viruses, so like COVID-19, herpes, HIV, Epstein-Barr. You want to make sure you get these treated, right? Because that also constricts blood flow to the brain. You also want to make sure you have a really strong immune system. So immunity is in here as well. N is for neurohormone deficiencies. I'm sorry. So the H in Bright, I messed up. So N is for neurohormone, which I talked about hormones. The H in Bright Mind is actually for head trauma. So if you've ever experienced a head trauma, it could be as simple as like whiplash. So back in the day, I know when I was younger, I used to love to go to Six Flags, Great Adventures, even Disney World, which I live in Orlando now. So Disney World's pretty big. They have the rides, and you go on these roller coasters and your head is like doing all of this and you come off and you have a headache. The headache is not out of nowhere. So your brain is a soft organ. It's like the consistency of soft butter or tofu or custard. And it's housed in a very hard shell with sharp, bony ridges, right? So picture yourself, you are on a roller coaster going however many miles per hour, like way faster than we drive, right? And then all of a sudden it stops and it's jerking. So you have your brain like just being hit back and forth in this really hard skull with these sharp, bony ridges. So it's getting hurt. And it's getting impaired. So you don't have to actually have a concussion to have head trauma. Okay. Now, some people have had, like as a baby, they fell out of the crib, or maybe they were boxing, like some sports, we've seen that folks have head trauma. The football players, there was a huge NFL study that showed that these folks, when they get out of the NFL, or even what they're in, they're having these issues with their brain, with aggressiveness, mood swings. A lot of them end up getting in trouble and getting incarcerated, because their brain has been so badly damaged. It literally changes their personality, right? But like I said, you are not stuck with the brain you have. You can heal it. There's a doctor, which I can, once I pull up this book, I can tell you his name, but he has a story of before he became a doctor, he was in a biking accident where someone hit his bike and he ended up flipping in the air and had major brain trauma, like a concussion, like the whole 9 yards, right? But obviously he was able to heal his brain and get it back to the point where he was able to go to medical school and become a doctor. But what happened was he developed some mental health issues, like depression and stuff like this. And he went on a whole exploration and found out that the two are linked, basically, because his brain needed more healing. So he wrote a whole book, and I'm trying to pull that up so I can tell you. I think it's called Brain Save. Yeah, Brain Save by Dr. Titus Chiu, Chiu. So if you know anyone who's had, like, I know someone in my circle who was literally like in New York hit by a train, and managed to survive that and is in recovery from that. This is like a brilliant book for folks like that who've had major like head trauma. Okay, so we're in minds, right? So we talked about neurohormone deficiencies. D stands for diabetes. So diabetes and obesity, risk factors for the brain because they constrict blood flow. And S, sleep. You have to sleep, right? This, when we sleep at night, is the brain is basically cleaning itself. It's taking a shower, it's taking out the trash, it's doing all the work at night that it's not able to do during the day because it's so busy then, but it's actually the busiest at night. Okay. And so we need to make sure we're sleeping at minimum 7 hours of 7 hours a night, right? So we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. And the actually sleeping at night, like making sure we get to bed before midnight, is essential, because between the hours of, I believe it's like 1 and 4, are when some critical things are happening for the brain and body, that we don't want to miss. They've actually done studies on shift workers, comparing, like, evening out. Both these groups are sleeping at least 7 hours a night. But one group is sleeping in the day, the other group is sleeping at night. The group that's sleeping in the day has a shorter lifespan than those sleeping at night. So it's really, really critical to make sure that you're getting sleep. So those are the risk factors. And one thing I would want to add too with the sleep thing is making sure that you are sleeping sound through the night. So sleep apnea, right? Or waking up in the middle of the night, gasping for air. This has been, the studies have shown that folks with Alzheimer's, they've undergone, they call it hypoxia, nocturnal hypoxia, where basically the brain is starving for oxygen. And that just means we're not breathing right at night. Like, those people aren't breathing at night. So some people some people think, which is, it makes sense that they would think this, because a lot of us thought this for a long time, that you had to be overweight or obese or something to have sleep apnea. And that's not the case. You can have a normal like weight, be at a healthy weight, and get diagnosed with sleep apnea. So if you're not sleeping through the night, right, even if you think it's because you need to use the restroom, which is not the case, okay, your bladder will never wake you up in the middle of the night if you are sleeping. So if you find that you're waking up in the middle of the night and you have set up a great sleep routine, meaning the temperature is right, so it has to be low, not higher than 71 degrees, like 68 to 71. It's dark, there's no sound, right? So there's no light, like not any little light from your phone. So if you have your phone in your bedroom, it's on night airplane mode, you have all of that going on and you're still waking up in the middle of the night, get yourself to a doctor and do a sleep study. If you're snoring, get yourself to a doctor and do a sleep study, right? So you will know, because either you're waking up in the middle of the night, you think it's probably because you have to go to the bathroom. No, but you're up now, so you can feel it. Because you're up and conscious, you can feel that your bladder is full, and that's why you need to use the restroom. But if you're sleeping, you won't feel it, right? But yeah, so it's really important. I just wanted to make sure I got that out there. But those are the risk factors. Tanisha.
Oh man.
I know it's a lot, but it's 11. So, what I want to say is that even with everything I just shared, I know sometimes if it's all new, it can feel overwhelming, right? What I want you to do though is focus on the one thing. Like, out of everything I shared, there's probably something glaring out at you that's like, oh, that thing, I haven't been doing that, or maybe I should pay attention to that, and focus in on the one thing you find will make the biggest impact in your health right now, right? And you could go one step at a time to make sure everything is, on the up and up. The first place to start that I tell, my clients and my community, I do a lot of trainings around brain health, and I give folks the labs to run to optimize their brain function, is take these labs, go to the doctor and request the test run. If your doctors say no, I can refer you to a doctor that will allow you to run these labs, right? Because you need to know where you are to know how to optimize it. It's good to know. And yes, I've heard, some doctors, they don't want to do it. I don't know if there's an insurance situation or whatever. For some of it, you may have to pay out of pocket, but you know, I think knowing where you are, like you may feel like you're good on omega-3s, and maybe the tests will show that it's not where it needs to be. There are folks living in California who actually ran did tests on their vitamin D, and their vitamin D was really low. And they're like, how could this be? It's because they're working all the time indoors. If you're indoors, how do you absorb the vitamin D? So it's just good to know to test to see where you are.
Oh, this was so good. Very informative. I was like, no, don't come for my fish. Okay, don't come for my fish. Okay, look at here. When you start cutting out all the other meats, oh, don't come for my fish. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I mean, honestly, when you look at the fish right now, I need you to see like the whole chemical hazard sign, because that's what it is. This is not, and I've heard people in the church say the Jesus turned, he used fish and fed everybody. This is not Jesus's fish. We are in a different time right now. You understand? Like you're not just eating fish. You're eating heavy metals. You're eating plastic. You're eating carcinogenic chemicals. So it's more than even fish. It's beyond that. Right? So you don't even have to tell yourself you're giving up fish. You're giving up chemicals. You're giving up plastic. Yeah.
Oh, this is good. My God. All right, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
There's two things the Lord really just sort of had me add into my diet. Really, I want to know if you looked at research in regards to the effects of chlorophyll. I know we're always talking about eating green leafy vegetables, but research centered around chlorophyll and green tea.
Yes, green tea, great for the brain. And those seaweeds, including chlorophyll, is also really great. Other than the fact that they're iodine rich, which is great for the thyroid, helps to balance out those thyroid hormones, which I said, is great for the brain. There are minerals in there that is also helpful for the body. So yeah, chlorophyll is great.
And so what do you recommend the best sources for chlorophyll?
That's where it gets tricky, sourcing these things. And honestly, I personally don't take chlorophyll because I don't like it, I don't like it personally. However, if I were to go about sourcing, because there are other seaweeds that I do consume, like nori, kelp, kombu, like all of my dry goods I get from Thrive Market. So I tend to like to shop at places where having high quality foods is part of their regimen for what they offer in the store. So like Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, but Thrive Market is a really affordable place to shop because they have a meet or beat pricing promise, right? So like, let's say in your community, you find, and I'm not sure if they have chlorophyll because like I said, I don't buy it, but I know like all my other seaweed stuff I buy from there. But like, let's say I'm picking up nori sheets from Whole Foods and it costs, I don't know, $7 or $7 at Whole Foods. And Thrive is showing online that it's $8 or something like that. I share the receipt with them. They meet or beat that price, right? And it goes across the board for everybody. If you are on EBT, you have an EBT card, you can use it to shop at Thrive. And all the food, it's all dry good stuff. So you're not going to get your leafy green vegetables and fruits from there, but it gets shipped to your door. It's free shipping once you hit a certain amount, right? So with proper planning, you can do that. And so I find it really affordable. It's basically like the Costco for healthy food.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah. But
So,
besides then, Whole Foods, and if Whole Foods has the brand, because typically, like with stuff like that, you're looking at like extracts and the brands that offer that. But yeah, Whole Foods is another great place um, for something like that. Trader Joe's is not going to have chlorophyll for sure. Yeah.
now a person who just eats a lot of green leafy vegetables, are they still getting a sufficient amount of chlorophyll?
Yeah, because primarily what you want is a wide range of minerals, right? All leafy green vegetables have chlorophyll. That's not the only thing that's necessary for an optimally functioning body. In the leafy green vegetables, you have minerals, a variety of them, and vitamins. And what I recommend is that you rotate. You rotate your greens and you rotate your fruits, right? Which, all of us are like, when it comes to food, some of us are very price conscious, and the ones who aren't, um you know maybe this doesn't really apply, but there's a spectrum, right, of folks, right? And I tend to be in the middle, right? I kind of know, I can tell you how much I paid for a bag of grapes, right? Where I have some folks in my family, they could tell you like the exact price that grapes is going for. But ancestrally, historically, we would have a wide variety. We would be eating locally in season, and that would mean we're not eating the same thing all the time, because you don't have available in nature the same thing all the time. So even now, when we're thinking about, well, how can we be more cost effective with our shopping? How can we get the highest nutrient quality? First of all, I mentioned the T, toxicity, right? You don't want to bring toxins into the body because that constricts blood flow to the brain. Some of these toxins actually penetrate the blood brain barrier. So we want to make sure we're eating organic as much as possible. We also want to make sure that we're eating as local as possible, so the food is not traveling too far, because the further it is that it's traveling, it's like decreasing in nutrient value little by little. It's oxidating a little bit. So in order to optimize that, if you're following this, you tend to eat what is in season and locally to you, which is changing. So for me personally, the most affordable grocery store to shop is Trader Joe's here, right? In Chicago, it was Stanley's. In LA, it was actually Whole Foods, because they have more expensive places there. But you notice in these stores, the fruits are changing. Some of the vegetables tend to stay pretty constant, but the fruits for the most part are changing. For you with the leafy greens, you just need to be mindful to rotate that, right? So you had collards and Brussels sprouts this week, maybe next week have some cabbage and some kale. You know what I'm saying? Just like switch it up. But for your fruits, like right now, we have apricots, we have cherries. I mean, it's a fun fruit season right now. We got some nice new things in there, peaches, nectarines coming out, so a lot of nice fun things to like explore. We have grapes year round. Don't eat grapes only all the time. I love grapes, right? I could just live off of grapes right? But that would it wouldn't give my body all that nature and God has provided for it. So I would run the risk of some kind of nutrient deficiency if I was just living on grapes. You know what I'm saying? So that's how, because me personally, I don't take supplementation. Most supplements aren't even effective according to the research and the studies. They don't do what they say they're going to do. And part of it is to in the supplement market, and even the pharmaceutical, like they have this reductionist mindset, like even with vitamin D, right? So I don't know if you've read Dr. Greger's How Not to Age. He talks a lot about supplements. It's another book that I highly recommend. And vitamin D, a lot of vitamin D supplements are not effective. They're not doing what they say they're doing. But the thing is that, is it really just the vitamin D? Right? Have we, because in science, sometimes we confuse correlation with causation, right? How do we naturally get vitamin D? You go outside in nature, the sun is there, yes. So we're absorbing, we're absorbing the sun rays, vitamin D is created in the body. But beyond that, we have nature out here with bacteria. That bacteria is interacting with our own bacteria. It is changing our gut microbiome and helping us in a positive way, also helping our mood because we're out with trees, all this kinds of stuff, or negatively, depending on where you are and what you're looking at. If you're looking at violence and lots of concrete, maybe it's not, so the environment and how you're getting the vitamin D, all of that stuff matters. It's not just the vitamin D. And a lot of times, with the medical world, the way they go about things tends to be very reductionist. And so we miss the point, we miss the mark, right? And confuse causation and correlation. So I always recommend when it comes to supplementation, if you're going to use it, you should be testing. You're doing an N of 1 study on yourself. So you journal everything. You write down the goal you're looking to achieve with the supplement, the date you started taking it, and monitor how your body is feeling taking this thing. And then after 30 days, have you noticed any movement, any change? Is it moving in the direction you want it to or not? If it's not doing anything for you, then most likely this thing is placebo, or it just doesn't do nothing. It's not effective. So it's not worth it. It's expensive urine, basically. So just don't take folks' word for it just because it's on a shelf somewhere, because even that's where folks get into trouble, even with the grocery store. People think that everything in the grocery store is safe because it's in there, and that's not the case. America is a pay-to-play country, okay? So not everything in the grocery store, even though it's being called food, it's not even food, right? Things that you see, juices sitting on shelves that's not in the fridge. This is not natural, right? Organic matter, fruits will go bad if you leave it out on the shelf. It's not going to last for a year out of the fridge, So you have to wonder what else is in there. It's not just the fruit juice. There's more. If there's any kind of legitimate fruit juice in that drink,
This is good. This is real good. You're really helping us on today. I had included your link, I believe, on one of my Facebook pages. Do me a favor and talk a little bit. If somebody wanted to work with you, they have a loved one that may be showing signs of dementia, maybe they have just some overall health issues in general. And I believe the link you gave me, it was in regards to the brain, though, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yes. And all of it, like I said, historically, I've worked with clients who are looking to release excess fat and reverse type 2 diabetes or improve their hypertension or some kind of chronic disease. As you can see, all of that plays a role in our risk factor for cognitive decline. If you walk into a room and you forgot why you went in that room, if you can't find your keys, these are signs, right? And most of us are dealing with this. It's just a matter of, are we being intentional about improving the health of our brain? Or are we allowing it to continue to deteriorate at the pace it's deteriorating, right? Alzheimer's and all the other dementias are not necessarily inevitable. And that's the big message. So yes, if you are wanting to optimize your own brain health through diet and lifestyle changes, definitely use the link that Tyneese has shared, so you can schedule a complimentary brain optimization call with me, so we can just have an assessment of where you are right now, what you're looking to improve on, and I can let you know how I can support you in that, or if there's some other resources that would be highly beneficial to you.
Look at here. All of y'all know somebody, all right, who can use some information on how to make our brains work a little bit better, okay? Every last one of y'all should be hitting this share button. I'm just going to tell you, okay? Every last one of y'all. My God, look here. I have tagged several people, okay, into this conversation. Why? Because I want my family to know about this, okay? There are people that I've had conversations with. I want them to gain access to this information. It doesn't make sense to gain the information, then you don't share it with other people who can use it, okay? So I want you, once again, I'm going to keep saying this, sharing is caring. I need you to hit the share. I need you to tag somebody in who can benefit from this conversation, because we all know somebody who may be affected with some type of form of dementia, or we're starting to see some cognitive decline. Okay. And as a result of that, it's the love in us, the compassion that we have towards another individual. We don't want to see them struggle. We don't want to see them really deal with a lot of the health issues where we know that some of it can be reversed. I feel this. I feel this. I feel this. Look at here. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I'm trying not to flow like that. Look at here. Not tonight, because last night was really strong. Okay, prophetically speaking, it was really strong. But I want you to share this information, because the Bible says we are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. All right. And so when we realize that we can acquire knowledge in regards to helping our cognition improve, to increase the lifespan of our loved ones, so that their lifespan is not cut off shortly, prematurely, because of a lack of knowledge, it will behoove each and every last one of us to hit the share button. Why? Because we're trying to save lives today. Okay. We don't want to sit back and watch them struggle. And so I feel this passionately. Okay. My God, I'm about to go there. Okay, spiritually, I'm about to go there. Okay, I just brought it back on there. Look at here, but I want to flow. I want to flow a little bit right here. Okay, but this is vitally important that you hit share. This was one of the most impactful conversations that we had, as somebody who's teaching us about genetics, who's teaching us about the food. And then what was this acronym? Bright Minds. Okay, I got some of them, but I was a little distracted because I was busy hitting share. I think I may have missed one or two here and there, right? Okay, y'all just go back and hit the replay, okay? And then you can get the letters and write it yourself, okay? Oh my gosh, I think I missed the letter N for one of it. I believe so. But yes, I was busy trying to tag people in, okay? And I was hitting share on other spaces, so I dropped the ball here and there, but that's okay. Catch the replay. Matter of fact, you should watch it 2 or 3 times. Okay, look at here, because I'm sure there's something you're gonna miss the first time around, but you will catch it on the second time. Okay, yeah. Okay. Any final words that you want to say to anybody who may feeling maybe a little bit just overwhelmed, maybe with a loved one who is diagnosed with a form of dementia, or they're starting to notice signs, but they don't have a formal diagnosis?
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom that you would like to say before we get ready to close out, or resources that you want to share? You've already shared like 2 good books that we can check out as well. So y'all go back. I did write one of them. I didn't get the second one in there. It was something
How
like
Not to Age.
Okay, that was it. How Not to
How Not to
Age.
Age by Dr. Greger. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned 2 groups. For one, like, one of my main messages is that we all need to step up into healthy leadership for our homes, our families, right? Because I talk to a lot of people who say, I can't eat clean because my child likes the chips, my husband brings home the cookies. And honestly, we are at a time now where we cannot afford to be really using other people as a scapegoat. That's number one. Number two, if you care about your kids, you want to pass on the legacy of health. And I already explained like how I actually didn't go into too much detail on this, but I can quickly say that processed foods and saturated fats are clogging up the arteries, making the blood vessels brittle. So other than cardiovascular events, which people tend to not be too concerned about with young people, even though they're already showing signs of atherosclerosis at the young, tender ages of 7 and 8, it's causing issues of autism and ADD, which means that they're not able to focus and absorb the information, become the brightest, most intelligent, most innovative people that we actually need on the planet right now. Issues of aggression and irritability, being able to have harmonious relationships with friends and other family members. These are things that we want to be able to pass on to our kids and have in our family. So making sure we're eating a clean diet is imperative for that. Living a brain a brain optimized life and being that model for our family is going to be vitally important, regardless of whatever substances people tend to be addicted to. Because a lot of people, even the young people, are addicted to this because they're engineers, science, food engineers who have figured out how to dial up levels of fat and salt and refined sugar to the levels where they are engaging the addictive pathways in the brain, basically flooding us with dopamine, which is completely unhealthy, which leads to depression, right? Because we're looking for that hit more and more and more. And so we have hedonic adaptation is what it's called. Basically, it's never enough, right? We want that healthy drip of dopamine. So the big thing for those who are seeing signs of cognitive decline, I think that's a sign it's time to step up into healthy leadership, be the model, be the change, learn the thing, lean into the knowledge, and be it, become it, and people will see you and model it, right? So that's number one. Number two, for those who are dealing with someone, you're caretaking for someone who's already in the throes of dementia, my heart goes out to you because it's tough. And what we know from the science is that stress is like the biggest factor that is, hurting these folks' quality of life, right? The caregivers. So as much as you're able to, taking time out to just breathe, right? Do some deep breathing exercises, just take a break, maybe take naps if you can, because I know everyone's situation with what that caretaking responsibility looks like is quite different. But as much as you can infuse moments of rest and restoration and joy and play to help calm your nervous system down, and deep breathing exercises, also, because you want to keep cortisol levels down. This is another one of those hormones that can affect brain health. If you're highly stressed, chronically stressed, it constricts blood flow to the brain. So you just, you want to do your best with that. Try to get as much sleep as possible, that 7 to 9, right? So you have the capacity to be patient and be loving with these, with your people who are dealing with dementia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wisdom that you poured into us in regards to genetics, our eating. Um, Y'all, please go back, and if you're just jumping in here, I want you to go back and catch it from the very beginning. All right. And then share with your family. Let the entire family begin to win. All right. And so this has been a great conversation. And I just want to say thank you, Samantha Salmon, for taking your time to hang out with us. I'll go back and add the link to your brain optimization as well into the description on YouTube as well. But everybody, please, really, I can't say this enough. Hit the share button and share the information with somebody. All right, let's save lives today. Um, so blessings to you all. This has been amazing. But we are done for today. So y'all have an amazing evening, and y'all do better in the kitchen, okay? We're gonna do better in the kitchen. I got to give up some of my fish, okay? Oh God. All month long I've been being challenged. Okay. Last month I was being challenged for exercise, and this month they challenged me about my fish. Okay, look at here. I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I'm just gonna be a better person. And that's good. That's a good thing. So thank you for helping me take care of this brain and this body so I can live long for my family. Okay. Um, Thank you again.
Thank
All
you.
right, y'all have a
Appreciate
good
you.
night. You're welcome.